So recently I had some extra cash and I decided that I might as well spend it on something, upgrading my computer. So I got the Ryzen 5900 CPU on my old Ryzen Generation 1 motherboard that only has PCI Gen 3. And then what I did was recently I got a RTX 3060, and the reason I wanted to get the RTX 3060 is, I know that it has some sort of ray tracing capability, and I guess what happens is it has tensor cores, and the tensor cores, I think it's part of their framework of how they do some sort of machine learning to try to denoise, limited sampling. So what happens is they path trace sample, which isn't rasterization, it's path trace sampling, and they take like a pretty grainy view, and somehow this machine learning takes this sort of grainy thing and turns it into some higher level sort of thing, and that really isn't inspiring, but that is how these RTX cards are working. Is that they can be doing on the fly ray tracing, and what they're really doing is they're path tracing a relatively low resolution or low sampling sort of pattern, and then this machine learning thing goes in and tries to turn into a solid picture. And like I was saying, that isn't a great strategy, but it kind of works. So here I am looking at some demos, and these demos don't really have to do with this ray tracing ability. These are just the usual kind of graphic card. You can see it's doing a pretty good performer there, and I never made past the 70s series. I always made it. It's kind of in the 60 series, 50 series, and this is another 60 series card, and it's about as low as you can go. A lot of people think that professionals need these RTX cards, and I think my computer now is at a state where it's usable to make to make content, and this is the sort of thing that we've always dreamt of in the 80s and 90s, and now your computer is such that you can pretty much use it to do whatever you want pretty liberally. Of course, in the future, it'll probably get even better than it is. This better scenario. So up till now, these are all things not done by me. I just ran through some files I had. It's coming up pretty soon, and I did a pretty low sampling rate, and I did this noise. So it's actually in the style of what NVIDIA does in their games. Here it is. Here, this segment is. I don't know exactly what it took. This took maybe 2 hours in HT, or maybe I don't know. I'd have to check it out. It took something like 2 hours to do this. But it gets more complicated if you have reflections and that sort of thing. But yeah. So I decided to do all of the good stuff first, and I'll go back into the history of my graphic cards just after this. So really, the RTX 3070 is the one that is kind of reasonable within my price range. That would have had some performance, but it in itself would have from the store cost me about 750. But my power supply is just barely able to deal with that. This is a 220 watt card, and somebody I was looking at Kijiji, and there was some used cards, and I could have got certain things cheaper, but then I thought, well, I have to see them demonstrated, but I can only test so much at a time. And so I eventually wound up just going to the store and just getting something, and I had like a few days. What that really meant is there's a few days for me to test it out, and mine is tested pretty good. But I've only tested, of course, the HDMI out, because that's what I use. And it's like I say, you can't really test everything. So I did have some of those very attractive deals that required testing, because if I go to Kijiji and I just show up and buy something and it doesn't work at all, I don't really have any recourse of getting it. They'll say, oh well, worked for me. So this is the problem, and these devices, they have so many things that go wrong over a long period of time, that this whole strategy it doesn't really work. But this particular, there was a TI version, the 3060 Ti, which is very similar to 3070, and they were actually less than I paid. This one was 479. So another card that was very attractive was another 360 Ti that was even cheaper at $420. But this is out of a built system. So this is an HP Omen system. I think it was a 30L or something. And the idea is that somebody took out the graphic card, and from what I hear, that's okay. But if there's any kind of like sort of internal negotiation that goes on to make this thing work, that's going to turn out very badly for you. I hear these things, they don't have great thermal characteristics, but 420 would have been a really good deal. But I try to set it up, and the guy starts saying, "Yeah, I'll show it to you." And he goes, "Oh no, I can't show it to you. You know where I live." Well, it doesn't help me know where you live, because he's going to say, "No, I'm not giving your money back." So that was not a good idea. So then I was thinking about all these models, and I was thinking maybe I don't really need a 3070, because the 3070 would probably need a new power supply. And I thought maybe I can push my power supply a little bit harder than I thought it was, because it's a 600 and it's got two branches. So really it's got like two 300 branches. I try to make one of the branches go to the CPU, and the other branch go to the graphic card. And the 36 is kind of attractive, because I think it's like I think it's 170 watts, and the graphic card is using before is 120 watts. So as up between the CPU and the graphic card is up about 100 watts. I think I'm probably doing like between 400 and 500 watts on my 600 watt supply, which isn't horrible. So I went to the store with the expectation that I'd have something new that I didn't have any headaches about. And what happened was I knew that the cheapest one was out of stock, and I was telling them I'd have to go to the, from like a 469 to a 499 card, because they're out of stock. And I said, well, that's the way it's going to have to be. And then they go, oh, well, we do have one of the cheaper ones, but a customer returned it, and it's actually like $14 cheaper than the earliest thing, the lower price. So it was like I don't know, 456 or something. And we looked at it, and it had some of the packaging still on it. I don't know if that means it wasn't used. It had some where the light lights up. It had some sort of wrapper there, and I took that off. And they seemed to think, oh well, it could have started with the wrapper on, but the wrapper actually didn't go into the fan. The fan had nothing to do with it. It's just that there's some wrapper around the lead. So what is good about this though is that I can take it home, test it, and if there's any problem in a certain number of days, again, it's been potentially used by somebody, but I don't think it has been. I could take it back. So that's a level of security that's higher than the other opportunities. But again, none of those people demoed their thing, and I really wanted them to demo it. And I did do that procedure before on another card. But what is redeemed about 3060, which I don't know how high I have to go, is it has actually 12 gigs of slower memory. And that wouldn't usually help you, but potentially when I'm doing sort of Blender renderings, it might, if the meshes get complex enough that all that has to go on inside the card, not the sort of communication. So in a way that might come in handy, and even be better than those cards that I would have liked to have had but couldn't get. So here's a Lux rendering that is something I did before, that I changed some things around so that they're kind of glass-like. And this took like 11 hours and was like CPU and GPU. So this like took so much energy that it's like worth like $2 in electricity. And there's still some noise. There's something going on. There's some sort of white dots all over the place, but I don't know. That's the best I could do, and that's like a straight up. I don't know if it involved those tensor cores. It's like a straight up CUDA core kind of path tracing using LuxCore. So just going down memory lane in terms of 3D rendering, I had a few graphic cards. Originally I tried to invase a local bus card that was not a 3D accelerator, a Hercules card, and probably the first actual 3D accelerator, which was a pretty lousy one, involved the Mach 64, or sorry, I think it's a Rage 3D chip. And this is the All-in-Wonder PCI. So I had some fun with that. I had TV in and out, and some really primitive, crappy 3D acceleration. So after that, I had a variety of AMD and NVIDIA cards, and I still have the glasses from a particular Asus NVIDIA card that would turn one eye off and another and synchronize it with the screen so that you get some sort of depth perception sort of thing, like a 3D TV. I don't know how much those are popular these days, but in the end, I wound up kind of liking the NVIDIA cards because they seem to have a longer support in Linux. So my first really hardcore card was the NVIDIA 550 Ti, and I had kind of a dinky supply, and I had somebody over, and I was showing them what I could do, and like I just went, we're watching, it, and it just goes like bang, and the screen's black, and it turns out that it took out my power supply, and I went over and I got the power supply I have now, and everything seemed to still work, and in fact, in the end, I wound up selling that card to somebody for a pretty low price. So I can't remember what I paid for it, but the first really surprising card that I went out to buy somebody used was the Asus Strix 970 overclock, and the it had issues where some of the memory would was going slower than the other memory, and this and that, and it kind of made it kind of an uncomfortable card. But it was a good kind of card for the moment, but today it's really nothing notable. So I was working on some render projects, and I was deciding how I could make my second computer also do render projects. So what I wound up doing was I bought a card that's a little bit better than the 970 from the store. I kind of based the decision that it would be like equal to 970, and this other card would go into the other computer. And just because the graphics was done on the card, that it would be comparable. But it was actually used in some videos I made, but basically did everything a third as fast as the first computer. So in the end, that was kind of useless. So that wasn't really that incredible. So at this time, this new first card is in my second computer, so it's there in case I need to do anything. It won't have those sort of memory limitations that the 970 had. So there's another problem with this thing called resizable bar, which has something to do with the CPU's ability to directly access memory in your video card. And I think that might not be really relevant to rendering, videos. So anyway, I can't really do that because you need to be totally in the extensible firmware interface sort of boot, and I've never really done that. And my desktop be repartitioned, and I don't feel like installing all my software again. So there's kind of like an unknown benefit to this resizable bar, which is some sort of different approach to accessing the memory on the graphic card.